Hello, my name is Christy Godwin, and I'm a psychic medium. I'm here with Christine. Christine was the first winner of a free reading. I do those drawings every month. And so we're going to talk a little bit about her experience. Thank you so much for joining me today, Christine.
Oh, you're so welcome.
I was kind of hesitant when I messaged her. I wasn't sure she would want to show up and let me record her, so I was very happy about that. So I'm going to ask you real quick, what made you enter the drawing?
My cousin Missy had an experience with you, and she told me about it, and it got me fired up. And I have been grieving my former husband for quite a while, and so had some things going on, and just felt like I wanted to give it a try, and seemed like the right moment. And honestly, I knew that if I tried to reach out to Mark, he was probably going to laugh at me for spending whatever amount on a psychic reading. But I thought, okay, if I win it, then it doesn't matter. Maybe he'll be okay with it. So it was in the stars. I won and had a message and got to try it out. And I'm a total believer now.
Because I remember after I spoke to you a second time and you started reading you. Once, for those of you who don't do this for a living, once you have connected with a spirit from the other side and then they come forward again, you can recognize their energy, just like I will recognize Christine the next time I see her, just because I recognize her face and her voice. And so I had kind of forgotten about the Missy experience. That's her cousin that I had read. And but Mark was one of the last spirits to come through. And I had Missy's relatives lined up. She had a ton come through. And then the first relatives over here, they kept trying to get my attention. I was like, what are they doing? Because I was kind of finished with their message. And then I came back over here. I was like, okay, they're pulling me back over here. Let's see what this is about. And so instantly, Missy realized that it was Mark. And he had a message. She said, I have to tell my cousin. And now, whenever you entered, did you think you were going to win?
No. I just said, well, let's see what happens. And I actually do things when I'm, how do I word this? Sorry, I'm not good at speaking. When I get determined about something, I go all out. So I was like, okay, I'm going to put everything into this to try and win. So I was sharing your link every hour.
Yes, I'd forgotten that. You did. And I had forgotten all about that. I did, yes. So she shared my page several times, and she shared it 3 times, and I did put her name into the drawing 3 times. And I did say that was probably going to be my max, so that people didn't get the right idea of sharing my page like 100 times and blowing up Facebook or something. That was very funny. I'd forgotten about that. Yes, and so when your name came out, I was like, I was kind of thankful because I felt like Mark was really trying to connect. And I have a ton of stories of how spirits from the other side will manipulate my life and will manipulate people's lives on this side so that I connect with them. It has actually happened recently. You touched on it a little bit, but we're going to get a little bit deeper in it. I could tell the second you popped on my screen and I was doing that reading that day that you were skeptical. And I was like, oh, I'm going to have to prove myself. Okay. Now, what made you change your mind? Because by the end, I could tell you were like, oh, yeah, I believe this.
I put my guard up right away with you at first, saying, okay, so she sees me on Facebook, so she could get information from me. But at the same time, I don't want to say too much and give out things that, that I don't share on Facebook, because I'm a pretty open person, and it's sometimes a curse, but but yeah, I was just trying really hard not to give you any cues or anything else, just trying to think what could she read off of me to try to get this information, So I was being very guarded, and then once you started saying things that there's no way you could have known, then it was like, oh my God, this is real. This is yeah, there's no way she could have known this. There's no way she could have known that. I was like, yeah, none of this stuff's on Facebook. There's no way.
And, I do encourage people to be skeptical going in because, you want to make sure the reading is authentic and the person reading you can prove themselves. And I want to prove myself. I don't want you to tell me things because then I'm not sure, do I have the right spirit? Is this really her ex-husband? And, but I could tell, and you can feel, because it is an energetic vibration going between me, the sitter, and then the person on the other side. And so once the sitter drops their walls, the energy starts spinning faster and I can get the connection easier. I don't have to have that. It just makes my life easier. And so I remember when that dropped, I was like, oh, now I said something. I don't remember what it was, but I knew I had said something that you're like, oh yeah, there's no way she'd know that.
There was actually several things, but I mean, one thing just really, like, there's no way she would have known that, no way. And but yeah, there was several cues that you said that I just lost it. Like, oh my gosh, she's really fearless, and it was a good feeling. I mean, like, I always had a feeling like, it's like making homemade chicken and noodles in my kitchen, feeling like grandma's there with me. And there's just other times, like if I'm thinking about something with my car, and Mark would always get your oil changed every 2,500 miles, and don't wait till 3, do it at 2,500. You don't want to wait till 3,
Yes.
It was just types of things like that where I would hear him in my head, and it was kind of like he was there, but it's like, oh, I'm just used to hearing him say that. But now it's kind of like justification or
Yes.
proof that he really is here, and that that they don't go completely away, that they're still with you.
That is a beautiful point, because a lot of times when people sit with me and I'm giving information, it's just validation for things they really already knew in their heart and soul. But then sometimes you get in your own way and you think you're talking to yourself, or no, they're not really sending me messages. That's just me wishful thinking. And so that's something that is really beautiful when you have a reading, is when that can be confirmed. Oh, they were, but I did feel them with me. And when I sat down with Christine just now, she had mentioned, we were talking, and then all of a sudden, sure enough, it's right up. So once I have read someone, and that connection has already been made with a spirit, it is so easy for them to make it again. It just popped right down. And instantly I was asking Christine, yeah, did he like Christmas a lot? What's this about Christmas? Because he started talking about Christmas. Your loved ones just always want to be around you, and Mark is around you all the time. I know we weren't here for reading, but he is very happy that you now have a relationship where you're loved again. And spirits are always happy when their loved ones on this side move on to another relationship and they're happy again, because they want nothing more than you to be happy. But you can just tell Mark was just a beautiful person, a beautiful soul. I was just telling Christine a few minutes ago that he was joyful, which is very different from happy. Like he had joy in his soul. He could have made any situation fun.
Yeah.
That he just has that energy coming off of him. Now, what did you feel like was your main takeaway from the reading?
Probably just that feeling like he's here. It's the confirmation that not just him, but my grandmother, still watch over us. And it's a really good feeling. And I think I've always kind of had that, but I always was searching for proof,
Right.
I'll tell you about an experience that happened when I was a kid. I was living with my grandparents. My sister and I shared this room upstairs in my grandmother and grandpa's house. And I was also very close with my great grandparents, which is my grandmother's parents. And my great grandpa had already passed away. And I had this dream that I'd seen both my great grandpa and my great grandma standing at the end of the bed telling me goodbye and to be good. And I went down the next morning to tell grandma about it, and my great grandmother had just passed away in her sleep that night. So it was kind of a weird coincidence, but I always felt like they really had come there to say goodbye.
They really had.
And I had another thing happen after Mark passed away, and I was back at the house alone after the funeral, and just felt I was a widow and an empty nester at the same time, and this big house felt so much more empty at that moment, and I couldn't go to sleep, and I just cried and cried and cried to try to get to sleep. And I dreamt that Mark had come to me and picked me up and hugged me tight, and it felt so real.
Mhm.
That when I woke up in the morning, it just felt like it's not great, but it's not as hopeless as it seemed when that night before. Like it's okay, I'll get through this. And whether it was a dream or if he was really there, it meant a lot to me.
You know,
Sorry.
no, that is beautiful, and I'm so glad you brought that up. I hear so many stories. I've read so many stories, researched it, and talking to people on the other side, they are always trying to communicate. Don't second guess yourself. That was him. He was there. And what they will try to do is to have you remember things that happened when they were here. You know, one incident, this gentleman used to always kiss his wife behind the ear. And so when he was coming forward, I was telling this lady, I said, do you ever feel like a little bit of pressure behind your ear? Because he's telling me. She's like, oh my goodness, yes. And so, you know, to me, that's probably something that you remember from Mark is I just have a feeling that the hugs that he gave you were so all encompassing. Like it wasn't just a quick hug, oh, let's move on. Like when he hugged you, you knew you were being hugged.
Yeah, he wasn't a person that was all about public display of affection or anything like that. I mean, at the end he was definitely, but when there was those moments, like when my grandfather passed away, when he hugged me, he generally meant it. Like he knew I needed a hug, and he hugged, you know. So that's
Yes,
the way he was. So when he hugged me, he meant it with everything, every fiber in his being.
I can feel that from him. And so he knew that that would be so comforting to you. And a lot of times people wonder, and I'm so glad you brought this up again, because they think once they have that connection to the other side and it goes away, it's going to make them more sad. But it doesn't. I mean, you're still sad, you're still grieving, but it's taken just a tiny edge off that you've been able to communicate with them and you know they are still alive and well on the other side. That is a beautiful story. You should shout it from the rooftops. I want to thank you so much for coming today and being so open. I know that it's hard for a lot of people to be recorded and tell their stories. And I thank you so much for joining me today and being so open and telling your beautiful stories. I so appreciate it.
Thank you.
If anyone has any questions or would like to contact me, please email me at christygodwin111@gmail.com. Thank you so much.